Lights dim, a single spotlight. A woman stands alone. Ah, my dear friends, or should I say, my dear imaginary ones, here stands a woman with no friends. Not by fate, not by accident, but by the strange twist of life's grand comedy. A woman with no friends is often seen as lonely, as if the absence of company is a flaw in her character. Society teaches us that to be alone is to be broken, incomplete, but perhaps that's the greatest misunderstanding of all. To walk through life without a crowd by your side is not always a sign of loneliness. Sometimes it's the mark of remarkable strength. Imagine a woman who stands alone, not because she is unwanted, but because she refuses to blend into a world that demands she be smaller, quieter, less than she truly is. It takes courage to stand tall when there's no one to hold you up. She may eat alone, sleep alone, and dream alone, but every step she takes is her own. Every decision is hers to make without the chorus of opinions to sway her heart. The strength is not always loud or visible. It's often found in the quiet moments, in the resilience of someone who wakes up each day without a soul to greet her, yet still carries on. The world assumes that a lack of friends equals a lack of worth, but perhaps she values herself enough to know that being surrounded by people who do not truly see her is lonelier than solitude itself. This woman knows the weight of silence. She knows the sting of being overlooked, the ache of an empty room, but she also knows freedom. She owes nothing to anyone, no explanations, no apologies. She does not pretend to like things she hates or laugh at jokes that cut too deep. Her authenticity is her armor, and though it may cost her companionship, it preserves her soul. In a world that praises those who are liked, admired, and followed, she is a quiet rebellion. Strength isn't just enduring hardship. It's choosing your own path, even when it's the loneliest road. A woman without friends learns to be her own comfort. She becomes her own counsel, her own cheerleader, her own guiding light. There's a certain power in knowing you can rely on no one but yourself and still move forward. She doesn't seek validation from the crowd because she's learned that applause fades. Approval from others is fleeting, but self-respect endures. The strongest people are often the ones who face the world alone and still choose to be kind. This woman doesn't need an audience to find joy. She laughs, not to fill the silence, but because life still holds humor even when no one shares it. She dances, not for attention, but because her spirit refuses to stay still. There's a beauty in her independence, though few take the time to see it. She is often misunderstood. People mistake her solitude for sadness, her silence for weakness. But if they looked closer, they'd see a woman who carries the weight of her own world and still stands tall. Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quiet, unwavering determination to keep going when no one's watching. The truth is, being alone and being lonely are not the same. Loneliness is a longing for something missing, while strength is the ability to thrive despite what's absent. This woman might feel lonely at times, but she is never weak. Weakness seeks comfort at any cost. Strength endures the silence and finds peace within it. So let the world whisper about her. Let them misunderstand her. A woman with no friends is not a woman to pity. She is a woman to admire. For while others chase approval, she holds on to something far greater, herself. The world moves around her like a play in motion, full of vibrant characters and endless noise. She watches from the sidelines, a silent observer in a production she never auditioned for. Everyone seems to know their lines, their roles perfectly rehearsed, while she stands there with no script in hand. It's as if life itself is a grand performance, and she's the only one without a part. Still, she remains, watching the scenes unfold. She walks down the street, and the world hums around her. People talking, laughing, rushing. To them, she's just part of the background, an extra in their starring roles. They never notice her, never think to ask who she is or what her story might be. They assume that because she's silent, she has nothing to say. Yet, in her silence, she hears everything. She sees things others miss. The tired smiles, the forced laughter, the fleeting moments of truth that peek through the performance. Every person she passes seems to be performing for an audience, even when no one is watching. They dress for the world's approval, speak in practiced phrases, and wear expressions that hide more than they reveal. She wonders if they even know who they are beneath the masks they wear. She wonders what would happen if they stopped acting and simply were. She doesn't play the part the world expects of her. There's no forced smile, no pretense, no desperate need to belong. And because of that, the world doesn't quite know what to do with her. She's an unscripted character in a carefully choreographed production, and that makes people uncomfortable. They avert their eyes, unsure whether to pity her or envy her freedom. The truth is, she's not invisible, she's just different. And difference, to most, is unsettling. The crowd prefers what is familiar, predictable, easy to understand. A woman who doesn't seek applause, who doesn't play along, is an anomaly. She walks alone, not because she can't find her place, but because she refuses to fit into a mold that was never made for her. In the quiet corners where no one looks, she lets herself feel. She laughs at the absurdity of it all, the idea that life must be lived for others to approve of it. She cries, too, not for herself, but for the world that doesn't realize it's trapped in a never-ending performance. The actors don't even know they're acting anymore. They've become their roles. She wonders sometimes if the stage will ever go dark, if the curtains will fall and the world will stop pretending. Maybe in that quiet, people would finally see each other for who they truly are. No scripts, no costumes, no roles, just people, raw and real and honest. She holds on to that hope, even though she knows the play is unlikely to end. Still, she refuses to become part of it. She would rather be alone in her truth than love for a lie. There's a certain strength in standing apart, even when it feels like the whole world is watching, or worse, ignoring her completely. She doesn't need applause to know her worth. If life is a stage, she is both the audience and the unscripted actor, living on her own terms. The world may never know her story, but that doesn't mean it's not worth telling. She carries it with her, a performance meant for no one else but herself. And perhaps one day, someone will step out of their role and see her, not as an extra or a shadow, but as a fellow soul. Until then, she watches the show with quiet understanding, knowing that the truest things in life happen when no one's watching. Every day, she wakes up to a world that doesn't notice her. The sun rises, the streets fill with life, and people move past her as though she's made of air. They see what they want to see, the busy schedules, the crowded sidewalks, the noise, but never her. Yet, within her, a war rages, one no one will ever witness. The battles she fights are quiet, invisible, but they are no less real. She carries the weight of her own mind, the doubts that creep in when no one's around to distract her from them. Each morning is a decision, to get up, to face the world, to pretend that everything is fine. No one sees the victory in that simple act. They don't realize how brave it is to fight against the pull of loneliness, to resist the voice that whispers, "Why bother?" She walks through life holding back tears that threaten to break free in the middle of crowded rooms. She smiles at strangers, not because she feels joy, but because it's easier than explaining the sadness she carries. No one asks and she doesn't tell. Her pain is her own, hidden behind a mask that looks just convincing enough to let the world believe she's okay. There are moments when the weight becomes unbearable, when the silence in her life is deafening. She fights against the urge to disappear entirely, to let the world go on without her, because it already seems to. But she doesn't give in. She stays. That's a battle, too, choosing to exist when everything inside her says it would be easier not to. Her victories are small and unseen. Getting out of bed, showing up, making it through another day without breaking down. No one claps for her. No one even notices. But they're victories nonetheless, and they matter, even if no one else knows it. She knows it. And sometimes that has to be enough. The world assumes that because she is quiet, she is weak. They mistake her silence for surrender. What they don't see is the strength it takes to hold herself together when no one offers her hand. They don't see the moments where she screams into her pillow or talks to the empty room just to hear a voice. They don't see her wipe her own tears and push herself to keep going. Every time she feels forgotten, she fights back by remembering herself. She clings to the idea that she matters, even if no one says it aloud. She fights to believe that her existence has meaning, even if the world never acknowledges it. She fights to hold on to hope, even when it feels like hope has let go of her. The truth is, people rarely notice quiet strength. They celebrate the loud, the visible, the triumphant. They cheer for the winners, the ones who conquer mountains for all to see. But they overlook the woman who fights wars within her soul and still manages to rise. Her battle isn't glamorous, it isn't celebrated, but it's hers, and she wins it every day she refuses to give up. She may never get recognition for her endurance. The world may never stop to admire her resilience, but she carries on anyway, not because it's easy, it never is, but because somewhere deep within her, there's a flame that refuses to go out, a small, stubborn fire that says, "Not yet." And that fire, that quiet determination to keep going, is what makes her unstoppable. The world may never know her battles, but she does. And perhaps in the end, that's the only recognition she truly needs.